Few quick facts, USS Iowa, Brain and Shoes is pretty interesting, and at one point it nearly sucked me in as well. This was released in 1944, it's directed by George Gordon, and we have Frank Graham voicing the bird. There's not a tremendous amount of information about this online, but it's definitely worth checking out. It's actually an MGM cartoon, but it does feature Private Snafu. There was this series of cartoons called A Few Quick Facts, and they were released to soldiers to obviously bolster the war effort, I guess, and also to encourage recruitment. And as I said at one point, it nearly made me, well, if it was 1944, it would make me want to consider. So we have 3 sections, and I'll talk briefly about them and share some thoughts. There will be some spoilers for what you can expect from this, but I will say it's pretty powerful. And the animation quality is gorgeous. So the first segment, the whole thing is about 3 minutes. They're not of equal weight. For example, the one with Snafu is very short, whereas the first one I feel is a little bit longer, a bit more informative. It's talking about the USS Iowa and the battleship and how strong it is and how brilliant it is and how it's going to help them fight the war. It taught me something because I'd never heard of the USS Iowa, so I thought that was pretty fascinating. Watching it today, very informative. Watching it at the time, it definitely gives a sense that the US Army has these strong, powerful machines, and it really instills a sense of confidence that these new weapons, because let's face it, ships are in their own ways weapons, a fantastic chance at really winning the war, and they're going to do it, and the USS Iowa is definitely going to help. Then we have the middle section, which is the bit where I was starting to think maybe this would have been for me. And I will point out, I would never, ever join the army at all. It is not for me. But because there's the opportunity for learning, I kind of thought maybe this is starting to sound like a good, prosperous opportunity to thrive, because it focuses on the fact that the soldier's most important weapon is their brain. And there are a lot of opportunities for learning skills and crafts like carpentry and bookkeeping. And if you join the army, these are trades that you'll learn. And I thought, that doesn't sound too bad. Reminds me of when I was at school and we'd have careers fairs, and the Navy would come around and say, we've got a job for everybody, just tell us what you're interested in. And at the time, I was determined to have a career in journalism. And it turns out they didn't have a job for me. But I wouldn't have signed up regardless. But the point is, I feel like that was actually really appealing. And it makes it sound like something that a person would actually really want to do. You might not be interested in the fighting, but if you're getting this education at the same time, maybe it's a lucrative experience. I'm very impressed. I don't think I've ever been even slightly drawn into any kind of propaganda or training videos at all, but this one for a brief second spoke to me, so it's definitely doing something. Well, I was going to say something positive there. I guess it depends on how you look at it. It's definitely doing something impactful. And then we have the third part with Snafu, and it's just a warning message that soldiers should not put their boots on the fire to dry them off because you're burning the leather, so stop it, basically. It's an instructional little segment with a bit of comedy thrown in there as well, and I thought that was not a bad way to finish things off. So definitely a very fascinating cartoon, both in terms of how it made me feel and also the pacing of it, the structure of it. It manages to deliver quite a lot of information over the course of 3 minutes. It doesn't pad out, but it doesn't feel rushed, and it's actually pretty impressive. It's also really interesting to see Snafu in a cartoon that was primarily produced by MGM. There are other studios involved in A Few Quick Facts. Disney did some, to name just a few, Disney and MGM, and Snafu does appear in a couple more, and I don't think I've seen any of them. I think this is the first one that I've seen, but I will certainly be looking out for the others. And if you haven't seen this, and if you're a fan of Snafu, or if you're just curious, then I'd say it's worth checking out.